Imagine for a moment a heart that is weary. The nights feel endless, the prayers echo back in silence, and the weight of waiting presses down like a heavy stone. You've whispered, "God, when will it be my turn?" Perhaps you've watched others rejoice, while you remain in stillness, wondering if heaven has forgotten your name. Yet, what if the silence is not abandonment, but preparation? What if the delay is not denial, but the divine pause before an overflowing flood of peace, joy, and abundance? God's ways are not hurried. He is never late, yet he is rarely early by our clocks. His timing is perfect, but it stretches us, tests us, teaches us. Have you ever noticed how rivers do not rush to flood the land? They gather strength in stillness, hidden beneath mountains and valleys, until one day they surge forth with unstoppable force. In the same way, God gathers blessings in the unseen, storing them in the hidden places, until the day he releases them into your life in ways you cannot contain. The waiting season is uncomfortable, but it is holy. It is the place where your faith is proven, where your trust is refined, where your patience becomes a vessel strong enough to carry the weight of what is coming. For what good is abundance in the hands of one unprepared? What good is joy if it has never been tested by sorrow? What good is peace if it has never been contrasted by storms? God waits for you to be ready, not just for the blessing, but for the weight of it. Think of the farmer. He does not dig up the soil every morning to see if the seed has sprouted. He waits. He trusts the unseen work beneath the earth. He waters in faith, knowing that growth comes not by anxious inspection, but by patient endurance. So too, your prayers are seeds, your tears are the water, and God's promise is the harvest. The soil may look unchanged, but beneath it life is moving, roots are stretching, shoots are preparing to break through, and in time the field will flood with fruit. Peace is not the absence of trials, it is the assurance that even in the storm, God holds you steady. Joy is not the absence of sorrow, it is the strength to sing in the night because you know dawn is on its way. Abundance is not the excess of things, it is the overflow of God Himself poured into your spirit, your mind, and your life until you cannot help but share it with others. So, my friend, do not despise the waiting, do not curse the silence, do not believe the lie that God has forgotten you. The flood is coming, but only to those who remain planted by the waters of faith. Just believe, just wait, and soon you will see that the very things you feared would break you were only preparing you to carry the overflow of His peace, His joy, and His abundance. And now let us turn to the truths that guide us while we wait. Truths that assure us of what is to come. Waiting on God strengthens faith and prepares the heart for blessings. Waiting is one of the hardest commands given to the human heart. Our nature longs for instant answers, quick relief, and immediate results. Yet God, in His wisdom, often calls us to seasons of waiting, not because He delights in our frustration, but because waiting shapes us in ways that haste never could. When you are waiting, you are forced to release control. You cannot speed up the clock, you cannot manipulate heaven's schedule, and you cannot demand that God move at your pace. This surrender is not weakness, it is the very foundation of faith. For faith is not only believing that God can act, but also trusting that He knows when to act. Think of the stories etched in Scripture. Abraham was promised a son, yet he waited decades before Isaac was born. Joseph was given a dream of greatness, yet he endured betrayal, slavery, and prison before stepping into his destiny. David was anointed as king, yet he spent years tending sheep and running from Saul before he wore the crown. In each case, the waiting was not wasted. The waiting was preparation. God was stretching their faith, teaching them endurance, shaping their character, and aligning circumstances so that the blessing would not destroy them, but fulfill them. In the same way, your waiting is not empty. It is the furnace where trust is forged. In the stillness, you learn to listen for God's voice, rather than rushing toward your own desires. In the silence, you discover that His presence is enough, even when the answer has not yet come. Waiting refines your prayers, turning them from shallow requests into deep conversations with the Creator. Waiting also purifies the heart. Sometimes, if blessings came too quickly, they would feed your pride rather than your gratitude. They would inflate your ego rather than humble you before God. But when you have waited, truly waited, you receive blessings differently. You hold them with reverence, knowing the cost of patience. You steward them with care, knowing they are gifts of grace, not rewards of impatience. There is a hidden strength that grows in waiting. The roots of a tree do their deepest work in unseen soil, stretching far beneath the surface before the branches ever bear fruit. Likewise, your faith takes root in the hidden seasons of waiting, reaching deeper into God's promises, anchoring your soul when everything above ground looks barren. And when the time comes, your life will bear fruit not because of speed, but because of depth. To wait on God is to declare with your life, I trust you more than my own timeline. It is to lay down anxiety, to surrender fear, and to accept that God is never in a hurry, yet always on time. In waiting, you do not weaken. You are strengthened. Your heart is prepared, your faith is matured, and your spirit becomes ready for the flood of peace, joy, and abundance that is sure to come. Peace is God's gift that surpasses understanding, even in storms. Peace is not found in the absence of trouble. It is found in the presence of God. The world tells us that peace arrives when the storm ceases, when the battle ends, or when circumstances finally align in our favor. Yet God offers a peace so profound that it remains untouched even when chaos surrounds us. This is why Scripture calls it the peace that surpasses all understanding. It defies logic, it silences fear, it guards the heart when the mind cannot explain why it still feels calm. Have you ever noticed that Jesus did not always remove the storm immediately? When he was in the boat with his disciples, the winds raged and the waves crashed, yet he was asleep on a cushion. His peace was so deep, so rooted in trust to the Father, that even nature's fury could not disturb him. And when he finally rose, he spoke only 3 words, "Peace, be still." The storm obeyed, but more importantly, his disciples learned that peace is not the result of calm seas. It is the presence of the Prince of Peace himself. This same peace is offered to you. It is not dependent on what your bank account says, what your doctor's report declares, or how others treat you. Peace is not fragile, it is resilient, anchored in the eternal truth that God is with you, for you, and working all things together for your good. Even when the storm does not subside, His peace is the anchor that keeps you from drifting into despair. When you believe and wait on God, you begin to taste this peace. Your heart shifts from asking, "When will it end?" to declaring, "Even here, God is enough." You stop measuring peace by external outcomes and begin to experience it as an inner reality. The storm may roar louder, but inside you are steady. The winds may howl, but your spirit rests. This peace is supernatural. It cannot be manufactured by positive thinking or temporary distractions. It flows from God's Spirit, guarding your heart and mind against fear, doubt, and despair. It reminds you that you are not abandoned, that every tear is noticed, and that your story is still in His hands. Peace also transforms how you endure trials. Without it, storms feel unbearable. With it, storms become classrooms. You learn patience. You develop resilience. You discover that peace is not weakness, but strength under control. And when others watch you walk through trials with unshaken calm, they see not your power, but God's presence. This peace does not simply shield you, it floods you. It fills every corner of your being until even in sorrow you find reasons to rejoice. It takes what should have broken you and turns it into a testimony. It whispers in your darkest night, "Be still, God is here." To believe and wait on God is to open your life to this peace. It may not remove the storm, but it will give you strength to stand within it, knowing that joy and abundance are already on their way. For the one who possesses God's peace possesses a treasure greater than anything the world could ever offer. True joy is born out of trials, not ease. Joy is often mistaken for happiness, yet they are not the same. Happiness is fragile. It sways with circumstances, rising when things go well and falling when they do not. Joy, however, is forged in the fire of trials. It is born when the soul encounters God in the midst of sorrow and emerges stronger, brighter, and unshaken. Think of gold purified by fire. It must endure extreme heat before its impurities are burned away. So too with joy, it is refined in seasons when the heart aches, when the nights are long, and when the soul cries out for relief. It is in these moments that God whispers His nearness, and joy springs not from the absence of pain, but from the presence of His promise. Scripture says, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." Notice the order: weeping first, joy after. This is not a denial of sorrow, but a declaration that sorrow is temporary while joy is eternal. Trials do not cancel joy, they prepare the soil for it. Without sorrow, joy would be shallow. Without loss, joy would be taken for granted. But when you have tasted bitterness, the sweetness of joy becomes a treasure beyond words. True joy anchors you in storms. It allows you to smile when the world expects you to break. It gives you the strength to sing when others cannot understand why you are not silent in despair. This joy does not deny reality, it transcends it. It looks at hardship and says, "This is not the end of my story." God is still writing. Trials strip away illusions. They reveal what cannot be shaken. When health fails, when friendships break, when finances crumble, you learn that joy cannot be rooted in things that fade. It must be rooted in something eternal. And when you choose to root your joy in God Himself, nothing can steal it. Circumstances may wound, but they cannot destroy what God has planted deep within. Those who walk with true joy become lights in dark places. Their lives shine with resilience, showing others that God's presence is enough. Even in valleys, they carry a fragrance of hope that testifies of something greater. And when their season of abundance finally arrives, their joy does not feel new. It feels like the harvest of years of endurance. This is why joy is born out of trials. It is not artificial, not surface level. It has weight, depth, and endurance. It is a declaration that no pain is wasted, no tear unseen, and no trial eternal. The one who waits on God learns to dance in sorrow, to sing in silence, and to trust that morning is always on its way. Abundance is more than material, it is the fullness of God's presence. When people hear the word abundance, they often think of wealth, possessions, or overflowing success. Yet true abundance is far deeper. It is not measured in material gain, but in the richness of God's presence filling every part of life. Material things fade, but when your heart is flooded with God Himself, you carry a treasure that nothing can diminish. Abundance begins with peace in the mind, joy in the heart, and strength in the soul. You may not live in a palace, but if your spirit is at rest, you are richer than kings. You may not possess gold, but if you have wisdom from God, you carry something the world cannot purchase. You may not have crowds applauding you, but if God's favor rests upon you, you walk in abundance beyond measure. Consider how Jesus described abundance. I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. Notice He did not promise more possessions, but more life. Life that is overflowing, purposeful, eternal. Abundance, then, is not what fills your hands, but what fills your soul. It is a life saturated with meaning, guided by God's Spirit, overflowing with love, hope, and strength that cannot be stolen. When you walk with God, even ordinary things become extraordinary. A simple meal feels like a feast because it is seasoned with gratitude. A quiet home feels like a palace because peace reigns there. A single act of kindness feels like wealth because it multiplies joy in both giver and receiver. This is abundance, not scarcity of spirit, but overflow. Material wealth without God leaves the soul empty. You can have full bank accounts, but an aching heart. You can gain the world, yet lose your soul. True abundance is not about acquiring more, but about lacking nothing in Him. When His presence fills you, you discover you already possess everything that matters. Abundance also equips you to give. When your heart is full of God, you do not fear lack, because you trust His provision. You share freely, your time, your resources, your love, knowing that God's well never runs dry. And in giving, you find that the flow of abundance increases, like a river that grows wider as it pours into the land. The world chases material abundance, but those who wait on God discover something higher: abundance of spirit, abundance of peace, abundance of eternal hope. And when God chooses to add material blessings, they are received with gratitude, not as idols, but as instruments to serve His will. This kind of abundance cannot be stolen. It cannot be shaken by economic downturns, stolen by betrayal, or destroyed by time. It is anchored in eternity, flowing directly from the presence of God. To walk in this abundance is to walk in a richness that the world cannot explain, yet cannot deny. Delays are not denials, they are divine alignments. We often mistake delay for rejection. When prayers seem unanswered, when doors remain closed, when time stretches longer than we imagined, the heart whispers, perhaps God has said no. Yet more often than not, the delay is not denial, it is alignment. God is arranging pieces beyond your sight, moving hearts, shifting circumstances, and preparing you for what He has already promised. Consider the precision of a sunrise. It does not arrive a moment too early or too late. The earth rotates, the sky prepares, and at the appointed time, light breaks through darkness. In the same way, God's blessings come at the perfect hour, not when we demand them, but when everything is aligned for their fulfillment. The story of Lazarus shows this truth clearly. Jesus delayed His arrival until Lazarus had died. To the grieving family, this seemed like denial. Their hope faded with each passing hour. Yet when Jesus finally arrived, He revealed that the delay had a purpose, not to deny their request, but to reveal God's glory in a way far greater than they could imagine. Lazarus was not only healed, he was resurrected. The delay was alignment for a miracle that would echo through eternity. When you face delays, remember that God is never careless. His pauses are purposeful. He sees what you cannot. A job delayed may mean protection from hidden harm. A relationship postponed may mean preparation for something healthier. A prayer unanswered today may be the seed of a greater answer tomorrow. Delays also prepare your heart. If blessings arrived instantly, they might overwhelm you or slip through your unready hands. But in waiting, God enlarges your capacity. He teaches patience, strengthens faith, and builds gratitude so that when the blessing comes, you will not take it lightly. What seems like silence is actually construction. The unseen building of a foundation strong enough to hold what is coming. The world hurries, but heaven works in rhythms. There is seed time and harvest, sowing and reaping. God honors this rhythm, not because He is slow, but because He is perfect. If you can embrace delays as alignments, you will stop despairing and start trusting. You will see waiting not as wasted time, but as sacred time. Time in which God is setting things in order. Delays are the spaces where faith proves itself. They separate those who trust only in outcomes from those who trust in God Himself. And when the appointed time comes, the blessing will not be late. It will arrive exactly when you need it most. Trust in God's unseen work, for He prepares in silence. Silence is one of the greatest tests of faith. When prayers seem to echo back empty, when no sign appears, when heaven feels quiet, it is tempting to believe nothing is happening. Yet silence does not mean inactivity. God often does His greatest work in the unseen. Think of seeds planted in soil. For weeks, sometimes months, there is no visible sign of life. To the impatient eye, the field looks barren. But beneath the surface, roots are spreading, life is stirring, and a harvest is forming. The silence above is not proof of emptiness, but of hidden preparation. So it is with God. His silence is often a sign that something is unfolding beyond your sight. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading Israel out of Egypt. Joseph languished in prison before becoming a ruler. Even Jesus lived in obscurity for 3 decades before his ministry began. God's silence was not abandonment in any of these stories. It was preparation. He was shaping character, aligning circumstances, and orchestrating details so that when the moment came, His plan would be flawless. When you trust God's unseen work, you release the need to constantly verify progress. You stop digging up the soil to see if the seed is growing. You learn to walk by faith, not by sight. This trust is not easy, but it is transformative. It teaches you to rest in God's sovereignty, knowing that even when you cannot see His hand, you can trust His heart. Silence also refines how you pray. In noisy seasons, prayers are often shallow, filled with urgency and demand, but in silence, prayers deepen. They move from "God, give me what I want" to "God, shape me for what you want." Silence strips away self and reveals the soul's true desire, to know Him, not just His gifts. And when the answer finally arrives, it often comes suddenly, breaking years of silence in a single moment of breakthrough. What seemed barren proves fruitful. What seemed lost reveals itself as hidden. God's work was never absent. It was simply unseen until the right time. Trusting in His unseen work also frees you from despair. You no longer panic when evidence is missing. You no longer assume silence equals abandonment. Instead, you live in confidence that the God who spoke the universe into existence is still speaking over your life, even if His voice seems hidden in the moment. The unseen is where God weaves miracles. It is the canvas of faith, the hidden loom where threads are pulled together to form a tapestry too grand for us to imagine. Trust this. Every silent moment is full of divine activity. God is not still. He is preparing, aligning, creating. And when the silence lifts, you will see that His unseen work was always leading you to peace, joy, and abundance beyond measure. The flood of blessings comes suddenly, but only after patient endurance. God's blessings often arrive in a way that surprises us, not slowly trickling in, but rushing like a mighty flood. This is the pattern of His timing. Long seasons of waiting are often followed by sudden breakthroughs. It is as though heaven withholds the waters until the appointed time, and when the gates are opened, they pour out with such force that no one can deny it was God. Consider the story of Job. For a long season he endured loss, pain, and silence. Yet when restoration came, it came suddenly, abundantly, and in a measure that doubled what was taken from him. His waiting was not without purpose. It built endurance, and endurance prepared him to carry the flood. This suddenness is echoed in nature. The desert may look barren for years, but when the rains fall, it bursts into life overnight. Flowers bloom, rivers form, and the landscape is transformed in a moment. So too with your life. Years of dryness can change in a single season when God decides it is time. What seemed impossible yesterday becomes reality today. But this sudden flood does not come without patient endurance. Scripture reminds us that those who endure to the end will be saved, and that patience produces character. Waiting tests your trust, but it also enlarges your capacity. If blessings came instantly, you might not be able to hold them. Patient endurance is the vessel God uses to prepare you, so when the flood comes, you are not swept away by it, you are sustained by it. To prepare you, to sustain you, you are sustained by it. Sudden blessings are also undeniable to those who doubted you. They may have mocked your waiting, questioned your faith, or even called your trust foolish. Yet when the flood comes, it silences every voice of doubt. For it is evident that only God could have orchestrated such abundance. Your life becomes a living testimony of His timing, His goodness, and His power to transform. There is a holy beauty in sudden floods. They remind us that God does not need time to do great things. He only needs the right time. And when that time arrives, nothing can stop the flood. Not opposition, not delay, not even your past failures. His blessings flow unhindered, covering every dry place in your life with peace, joy, and abundance. So, endure, hold fast, believe even when silence lingers and delays stretch long, for when the flood of God's blessings is released, it will come suddenly, abundantly, and undeniably. And all who see will know that the waiting was worth it. My friend, waiting on God is not easy. It tests patience, stretches faith, and often feels like walking in darkness. Yet within that darkness, seeds are growing. Beneath the silence, roots are forming. And above all, God is watching. Carefully, lovingly, purposefully. The peace you long for is not far. It will flood your heart when the time is right, steadying you in ways the world cannot comprehend. The joy you have prayed for is not denied. It is being prepared, refined through trials, so that when it arrives, it will carry weight and depth. The abundance you dream of is not withheld. It is gathering strength, waiting for the perfect moment to break through like a mighty river. You may feel overlooked, but heaven has not forgotten you. You may feel abandoned, but God has never left your side. Every tear you have shed is stored. Every prayer you have prayed is heard. Every moment of endurance has been recorded. And the God who promises peace, joy, and abundance is faithful to fulfill what he has spoken. When the flood comes, and it will come, it will be sudden. It will silence doubters. It will heal wounds. It will restore what was lost. And most importantly, it will remind you that God's timing is flawless. His ways are higher, and his love never fails. So, just believe. Just wait. Lift your eyes from the timeline of men and fix them on the eternal calendar of heaven. For God will flood your life with peace, joy, and abundance. Not a trickle, not a drop, but a river that overflows until you cannot contain it. And when it happens, you will see that the waiting was not wasted. It was sacred. It was preparation. It was love. The God who created you has never forgotten you. Trust him. Believe in him. Wait on him. For the flood is coming, and when it arrives, it will change everything.